Folks, we should have seen this coming from a mile away. Well, some of us did, but we were told to shut up. Democrats don't want to place some restrictions on your Second Amendment rights. They want to take your guns, and they aren't even trying to hide it anymore. Here is New Mexico Governor Lou Ann Grisham thinking she is above the Constitution.
You took an oath to the Constitution. Isn't it unconstitutional to say you cannot exercise your carry license?
With one exception, and that is if there's an emergency, and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time, I can invoke additional powers. No constitutional right, in my view, including my oath, is intended to be absolute.
Did you catch that? This Karen, Governor Karen, we'll call her, she has the haircut and everything. Well, she thinks she has the power to suspend the United States Constitution by declaring a public health emergency. Shall not be infringed, Governor Karen. Not for 30 days, not for any days. Shall not be infringed. This isn't about crime prevention either, and she knows that because she even acknowledged it.
Madam Governor, do you really think that criminals are going to hear this message and not carry a gun in Albuquerque on the streets for 30 days?
No. But here's what I do think. It's a pretty resounding message.
Flat out says that criminals and thugs and felons aren't going to abide by her little decree, but who is? Law-abiding New Mexicans who have the right to keep and bear arms to protect and defend themselves and others from the thugs and the felons and the criminals who don't follow laws. But she knows that. They all know that. You know, I've been to Albuquerque and it's a hellscape. I couldn't speak at a university without state police and SWAT being called in. The state is a disaster and she leads it. This stunt isn't about cleaning up New Mexico. This is about infringing on rights because she thinks she's above the Constitution and above our freedoms. And here's the sad reality. They, meaning the leftists, will try to pull this public health emergency crap with more and more things. Why? Because the precedent was set in 2020. The only cure is a president of the United States in the White House who will not budge, not an inch. They want your guns, they want your money, they want your kids, they want your freedom, and you keep sending them back to state capitals and governors' mansions and school boards and city councils and to Washington, D.C. to represent you. What a joke. Louis, thank you so much for joining me. And I also want to say thank you for looking out for the interests of American truckers. You know, trucking is a profession. It's a duty that a lot of Americans don't understand the significance of. They don't understand that what truckers do really is the backbone not only of the U.S., but of the entire world. We certainly saw that in Canada with the Freedom Truckers, how important those individuals are. So I want to thank you for being such a strong advocate and getting the truth out there. I want to ask you about these EPA standards. I know that you've been very passionate about this, but what are these standards going to do to the trucking industry?
Well, thank you for the accolades and that. And as somebody who's been a professional trucker my entire life, it's my pleasure to stand up. And you're right. These new regulations are probably going to put a lot of small business truckers out of business, or that could be the case. We've seen this happen so many times with EPA and their overreach. They come up with these rules and these great ideas for the environment, and truckers want clean air. And I want to be, we want clean air and want a clean environment, but you can't do that at a cost of putting people out of business with stuff that does not work. I mean, when they did this in 2011, it could be argued that it was worse for the environment than it was good for the environment. But yeah, I mean, truckers were in 2018, we were brought to the table when they started talking about these things under Secretary Wheeler at EPA. And he promised me at the time that truckers were going to be listened to. Well, since Administrator Wheeler has left, of course, and in a new administration, that hasn't happened. Truckers have not been listened to. Truckers have not been at the table and on these new regulations. And, it's really easy to talk about these electric trucks, but, a truck runs on diesel fuel, internal combustion engine, they can run 1,000, 1,500 miles on one fill up. Electric truck, 500 miles at the most. And we don't even know where we're going to recharge them.
Yeah, that's the best point to make here as well for those who have this pie in the sky version of what electric vehicles are. You know, I'm born and raised in South Dakota. A lot of truckers in South Dakota, a lot of truckers go through South Dakota, through the Midwest, through the flyover states. And I'll tell you this, we don't have electric charging stations. Good luck. You want to drive your Tesla through the Midwest, through Montana, through Wyoming, unless you're in a little college town made up of a bunch of liberals wearing Birkenstocks and eating granola, you're not going to find a lot of charging stations for these hippies. So that's the part of this. It almost seems like they're trying to destroy this industry. And you'd think after the disaster that was the pandemic in 2020, people needing to get things being shut down, the essential workers having to carry the load, you wouldn't think they would do this again. So you got to help me understand. What do you think the motivation is if it's not just let's save the planet? I think that's BS. What do you think the real motivation is behind these standards?
I don't know what the real motivation is, because you're correct. You're going to cripple the nation with this kind of short-sighted thinking, unfortunately. You know, and the thing that they ignore that we bring up all the time, like myself, when my small business truck came in, I parked my trucks at my home. So I fueled them before I came or after, or I even had diesel fuel on my property. Where are these guys who go home every night going to charge? There's also this massive parking shortage, which is epidemic proportion. We don't have enough. We have one spot for every 11 trucks to park at night safely. Where are these guys? That's what they say. Well, they can charge at night. Okay, well, where are you going to park them? Because you don't have enough parking spaces now without charging stations, where there's going to be all these charging stations. But I wish I knew what they were trying to do. But you're correct. They are going to put small business truckers and small business trucking companies in a very bad situation and probably out of business.
What constitutes a small business trucker for Americans that they don't know the difference between, large scale, small scale? What's the difference, and how is this going to hit small business truckers more so than maybe those that belong to bigger entities?
Well, even big trucking is going to have a trouble with this too. And, that's a moving target of small business. Most of our membership, we have over 150,000 members, 1 to 2 trucks are all they have. That's all I ever had was one. Owned one truck, one trailer, and did it all. So that's small business. But small business trucking makes up 95% of all motor carriers out there. We see the big motor carriers, but 95% of motor carriers are small business truckers. So we need to keep that in mind. They are the backbone. And this isn't going to have just bad consequences on small truckers, but it's going to hurt the large trucking companies as well. I just read a report today that one of the companies that's producing electric trucks, they're having recall on all their trucks due to massive battery fires. So they got to get all these trucks to Arizona to have them look at them and figure out why the batteries are catching fire.
And I can't imagine switching everything over to electric. How many children in third world countries are going to be mining cobalt so that we can get our Amazon packages in 2 days or less? I mean, liberals, they really are special people. They really don't understand the ramifications of their pie in the sky ambitions, or maybe they do and they just don't care. But lastly, even beyond just these new standards, what would you tell the American people? What would a United States of America look like without truckers?
Well, you wouldn't have anything. They're the people who bring you everything you have, from the clothes you wear to the food that you eat and everything in between. We saw it during COVID, how important truckers were to this country to get medicine supplies. So that's what's going to happen. It'll cripple our nation, cripple our country. And I'm like you, I have no idea what people are thinking.
Yeah, they're coming after industries, obviously coming after the fossil fuel industry, good coal mining folks, people that work in oil fields. They're coming after American farmers and ranchers. They're coming after American truckers. They're coming after all of these entities and all of these industries that really are so important. And they think that they're going to replace them with, PhD individuals who've only gone to school. Well, best of luck with that. Louis, thank you so much for speaking to us, for trying to nail this point home. God bless you and all the truckers out there like you.
Thank you, and God bless all the truckers out there. Thanks for what you do.
Of course. Thank you so much.